If you're someone who is looking to get into open water swimming, or even train for your first triathlon, you've probably come across the question, what wetsuit should I buy? Should I use a sleeveless wetsuit or one with full sleeves? Before we jump into that, we need to know how a wetsuit works. Let's start with a discussion of forces. Drag force is the force due to moving an object through a fluid. In this case, the fluid is water and the object is a novice swimmer. With the equation for drag force, CDA is the shape, frontal area, and smoothness of the object where drag force comes into effect. According to Sebastian Olsamer of BMC Sports Science and Rehabilitation, a wetsuit reduces the amount of drag acting on the swimmer by smoothing the frontal area of the swimmer and therefore reducing the amount of resistance. Propulsion is the force pushing an object in a specific direction. Use of a wetsuit increases propulsion forces as it allows buoyancy in the legs, which in turn helps keep the legs afloat. Drag and propulsion are two forces acting on a swimmer. With use of a wetsuit, a novice swimmer can expect both a decrease in drag as well as an increase in propulsion. This leads us into our next biomechanical term, buoyancy force. Buoyancy force is the upward force on an object exerted by the surrounding fluids. The equation for buoyancy force is as shown. F represents the buoyancy force, P is the density of fluids, V is the volume of displaced fluids, and G represents the gravitational acceleration. Buoyancy force occurs in fluid matter, which can be gas or liquids, such as water. So when an object applies force against water, the water pushes back with the same amount of force. For example, when you put on a thick neoprene wetsuit and dive into the water, the force in which you are putting onto the liquid will push you back at the same amount of force. This leads us to the biomechanical term, speed. Speed is the rate at which an object or person can move in a specified distance. It is calculated by dividing distance and time travel. Swimming speed can be affected by many factors such as wetsuit buoyancy, drag force, and even wetsuit type. According to a study observing effects of wearing a wetsuit, regardless of the rate of perceived exertion during swim trials with use of a wetsuit or not, there was an increase in speed when the triathletes used one. Research has also shown that the use of no-sleeve wetsuits tends to conserve energy while having the same effects of a full coverage wetsuit and resulting in faster swim speeds in triathlon events. One of the most important factors in completing any competition is the ability to maintain sufficient energy. Energy is defined as the ability to create and sustain a force over a certain amount of distance. As mentioned previously, when a novice swimmer wears a wetsuit, they save energy by reducing the amount of drag force and by using less energy to keep their bodies afloat in the water. An additional benefit of wearing a wetsuit is to aid in thermal regulation. A wetsuit helps keep the core temperature higher by acting as an additional insulating layer. Therefore, this preserves energy that the body would have used for warmth for propulsion instead. So when deciding on a sleeveless or full sleeve wetsuit, the answer depends on water temperature and swimming level. Clearly, if the water is cold, you're going to want to get a full wetsuit. Elite swimmers tend to have a slower arm turnover rate, which would benefit more with a full wetsuit. Therefore, novice swimmers tend to swim faster in sleeveless wetsuits because there is less resistance and greater shoulder mobility.